Hey everybody, Cat is back round 2. I'm gonna take a look at some replays here. Hopefully my commentary isn't like super boring or whatever. I might run out of stuff to talk about, but I don't know, we'll see. So this is Celdanami versus Chad Plank, aka Ninja Power 20. So Celd brings a lot of experimental Pokemon, or I guess not experimental Pokemon, but experimental teams. Ninja Power bringing Weezing really facilitates Swellow. Like I said with the last round, Swellow kind of struggles without Weezing because a lot of Pokemon opt for Thunder Wave instead of Toxic. Weezing just happens to be a huge Will-O-Wisp user. Another one being Dusclops, but I'm surprised we haven't seen more Dusclops. Celdanami has shown Endeavor Sceptile, which is kind of a, like, it was a powerhouse in Raikou. It just sort of felt like no matter what you brought, Sceptile was going to take something. But Chad Plank has the Arcanine to beat it, one of the few like guaranteed counters. And Chansey, I was about to say, is the other one that if you get the reads right, it's good, but Chansey can still fall victim to Sceptile. Oh, Baton Pass to Trapinch to get the Chansey. Chansey is like one of the few Pokemon that Trapinch can for sure take out, just because Chansey's Ice Beam doesn't KO. Chansey's Ice Beam isn't an OHKO, and then it only has Seismic Toss otherwise. And a lot of people just don't fit Ice Beam on Chansey because, I mean, its special attack is like 35, so it's not doing a lot of damage anyways. Raikou is looking pretty... Oh, never mind. I was gonna say Raikou is looking pretty threatening here, but it ate a Hydro Pump. I think probably could have... Well, you need Weezing for the Reduced Steel. You need Arcanine for the Sceptile, so I guess you had to sort of gamble versus the Vaporeon with Raikou. Vaporeon's just gonna clean this game up, and that's a thing that we see with Vaporeon, is it's a really good defensive wall, but then like when the opponent reveals its offensive, it kind of throws things for a loop. Especially this team, kind of hard into Vaporeon with especially Chansey being your special wall. Like Blastoise can roar Vaporeon out, but Chansey being the primary special wall means that Vaporeon's just going to give free substitute Baton Pass, as we saw there. Maybe someday somebody's going to figure out a way to get Chansey in on Vaporeon and reverse it, but that day was not today. And then of course Celdanami just reveals Raikou at the end. Sweeps anyways. So here's game 2. Crobat versus Sceptile. Ooh, the Sceptile lead does not want to see Crobat lead. And there's very... so Crobat, Hariyama, very offensive style. We might see... Well, with Whirlwind it's not Belly Drum. But it is going to be like some pretty good coverage on Hariyama, I think. We'll see if it has Sleep Talk, definitely not, but Vaporeon might have to protect here for like an explosion. Decides to just roar. I'm gonna need like some spikes or something to get that up just to stop Smeargle from getting that up a second time. The gutsy roar against Sceptile there. I suppose that might have been Vaporeon's only option. That Endeavor's gonna do a lot. Celdanami says, even if you win, I've done more damage to myself than you've done to me. So that's a win. Wow, does this just roar the team? You've got Crobat, which can learn Whirlwind. I doubt it has it, but you've got Whirlwind, Hariyama, Roar, Vaporeon, Roar, Steelix. Roar is super important, but I don't know if it's 3 team members important. Mischievous. Living that +1, what's it called? Overgrow Leaf Blade. Otherwise, Sceptile is pretty keen to just get going there because he can just switch into Regirock against Crobat. Crobat doesn't have a whole lot of ways to hit Regirock outside of Hidden Power Ground, which it's not doing very much. It could Sleep Talk Whirlwind, I guess, with spikes, but neither player actually brought spikes in either game. Or at least maybe Snurgle had spikes, I doubt it, but it's possible. Electrode, also a choice. I'm wondering what that's covering, because you also have Sceptile and Swellow for like fast Pokemon. Maybe it's just a switch into Raikou, like an easy resist for Thunderbolt or Hidden Power, and then you've got Explosion to scare it out. But chat not bringing any viable Electrode targets. And then, of course, Arcanine. To be expected. Alright, so this one is the Chungler versus Melninja. As they said in scheduling, this is a team kill. They get the same team avatar. Also, play together pretty often, I think. We're gonna see... I wonder what Draco Pope's Dragonite is. He's not typically running Special Dragonite, but keeping it on Steelix might be. Or just called that Melninja doesn't have Rock Move on Steelix. Ursaring, getting value with Vaporeon. And yeah, that's interesting because Archie notices here, if Vaporeon is sacked, it must be dire. And like, you have a Steelix right there. I don't know, like Ursaring's Sword Stance Earthquake must have done like something to Steelix. But probably, I don't know if that's a 2-hit or not. Oh yeah, based on that it definitely is against Steelix. So we've got Ursaring versus Ursaring. Chungler uses a lot of really offensive teams. Melninja typically prefers more balancey styles. As you can see, Ursaring with 3 pretty wally Pokemon, and then Intimidate user. Articuno's been seeing a lot of use after the Raikou Tour kind of paved the way for it to come in, but Articuno's also not been performing super great. I think people are using it and it just like happens to come in on some Pokemon. I feel like a lot of people are playing around Articuno kind of awkwardly in this tour. Like staying in Vaporeon to Toxic it. I mean, you have more Toxics than it has Heal Bells. Well, no, you don't because of pressure, so I don't know. Articuno just kind of gets to sit against Vaporeon, but I guess Chungler just doesn't have anything else for Articuno. Articuno is faster than Donphan, so it's just going to Ice Beam there. And then just Roar for Spikes damage here. Donphan's going to have to find a moment to Rapid Spin at some point. Because otherwise, the only thing on Chungler's team that takes it is Raikou. But Melninja has successfully preserved Steelix after the Ursaring incident. This looks like Donphan's time to Rapid Spin, because it's probably faster than Ursaring, but Melninja not wanting to let Ursaring go for a potential just Earthquake there. We'll see how Melninja wants to play this Ursaring, because it's not... The only Pokemon it could realistically take out is Vaporeon. And at that point, you kind of have to wonder what's the reason when you have an Articuno. I think that sacking Ursaring might have come too little too late here. Melninja can still make this out because Articuno's got Protect, Heal Bell, and Steelix has Rest, but Chungler leaving Donphan in to take an Ice Beam with Hidden Power Rock is just going to seal the game here. Ursaring returns. Oh yeah, Steelix is still asleep, eh? No. Articuno Heal Bell. Okay, so still a chance if Steelix has a Rock move, but it doesn't, so yeah, that's GG after that. We'll go on to game 2. Smeargle versus Quillfish. This is something that you would see on ladder pretty often. What was that, like over a year ago? Just not the most common things, but it's like Smeargle lead and Quillfish lead have to be accounted for just because they're so easy to click what they want to click. Then we've got the Weezing versus Scizor matchup going on here. Weezing versus Scizor is oftentimes a wash because Weezing has to Will-O-Wisp and like alternate Will-O-Wisp and Haze, but Scizor, like that, is able to just reverse the situation on Weezing if Weezing misses its Will-O-Wisp, which is why most players go for Haze first and then Will-O-Wisp, but Weezing kind of on the back foot after having to switch into it. Quillfish is going to opt to self-destruct on the Scizor. I'm wondering if Scizor had Morning Sun that was trying to live the self-destruct and then heal up. Melninja bringing another more defensive team this time. This looks a lot more stally. Melninja's a big fan of Slowbro, but I don't think that Slowbro alone is going to be able to clear very many teams because, I mean, you have Articuno, but Articuno typically only runs Ice Beam. You have Steelix, but Steelix typically only runs Earthquake, and so if they have like a good Poison Resist, and Chungler had 2, plus Dragonite, which might have Heal Bell, it's going to be pretty tough for Melninja to make any progress here. Weezing is in on Registeel though. Weezing, the ultimate Steel Killer, just Steel types, able to kind of wash versus Scizor. It's one of the few Pokemon that consistently beats Registeel. So we'll see how long Melninja can keep up this Weezing. Articuno gets a freeze. Don't think that's going to matter very much because Chungler actually just trying to sack off the Registeel versus Steelix. Interesting. Pulls Dragonite in on the Steelix. Again, Chungler doesn't typically run Special Dragonite, so another kind of just like predict on Steelix just having Earthquake Toxic, like a standard set. These are both pretty standard types of brings from both these players, and so it's a pretty safe call for Dragonite to stay in against Melninja's Steelix in particular, but if it was a more off-the-wall player, like if Chungler is playing Chad Plink, Chad might have like Explosion on Steelix or something like that, for example. So the thing about Chungler's teams is that they're so offensive that sort of balancey or defensive teams struggle into them pretty hard. It brings a lot of Swords Dance, like Dragon Dance, just like a whole lot of setup, choice bands, that sort of thing. As you can see here, it's like Swords Dance, Scizor, possibly Baton Pass, Subseed, Sceptile. It's just really difficult for defensive teams to break through all this stuff because they just don't have as much movesets, Roar being the big thing. But Melninja classically does not run very much Roar. Obviously multiple Pokemon per team, but that'll only get you so far versus like Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, Calm Mind, and Curse, if Registeel has it. No, not Curse. But yeah, very offensive Pokemon that Chungler tends to bring. Usually, what I would try to do is just out-offense him. Melninja has tried going the opposite route, so we'll see how long this... It's kind of just a battle of inches at this point because Melninja still has enough Pokemon to wall, like Raikou, Steelix, Healthy Chansey. The Weezing is good for Dragonite, and especially Articuno, because it can just Ice Beam. The problem is this Registeel most likely has Rest, and so this burn is totally meaningless, but nothing here threatens Registeel apart from Steelix, which has to take spikes. And so what did Chungler have against Steelix to begin with? I guess the Sceptile, kind of. Dragonite's only revealed hidden power, could have Ice Beam, I suppose, and then, of course, there's one Calm Mind with Raikou, but paired with Chansey, that's not... Oh, it's actually Explosion Last for Registeel. Of course, because you can just heal Bell with Dragonite. It doesn't necessarily need Rest, but like I was saying before, Chungler tends to bring more offensive Pokemon, so it would make sense that it's Explosion Last rather than Rest. Particularly with Thunder Wave. I mean, that's not to say that Rest and Thunder Wave are bad together, but for his team style, Thunder Wave Explosion just makes more sense. And then Raikou gets Calm Mind up and it's over because Chansey got exploded on. As things typically go with Raikou meta. This is JoJo versus Azure. Again, JoJo, a new player. Azure, very long-term player. We see Endeavor Sceptile, so this Registeel is not going to last too long. Actually doubles to Houndoom as Azure switches to Regice. Actually brings triple Regis. I'd like to see where this team ends up going, because 3 fighting weeks implies no Chansey, but yes, Weezing. Dragonite, if JoJo has it, not going to do very well, but has Marowak set up, so it's basically over at this point. Like, Swords Dance behind a sub, I don't, especially with Crit versus Slowbro. Triple Regis is basically done. And camera up last. Well, was Azure's only fighting resist? Oh no, Dragonite, that makes sense. Because it's also ground immune. To cover Registeel, Regirock, but I mean, this is just how Marowak is. When you don't have... Like, Marowak is a really good bring into Azure because Azure tends to bring a lot of slower Pokemon. Marowak, extremely good versus slower defensive teams, but not very good against regular teams with, like, Raikou or Vaporeon. Especially because Vaporeon can just roar out the Subpass or the Swords Dance turn, so it would have to... Like, Marowak has to continue cycling in, and because it's holding Thick Club and no one ever runs Rust Marowak, you'd have to really work to keep Marowak alive. I don't know if I've seen JoJo's team here, but I would imagine there's a spinner in the back and then another special wall. Maybe Chansey, maybe something like Registeel. Triple Regi's fun, but I don't know how well it's going to work in UUBL, especially this team, because like just Dragon Dance Dragonite kind of ends over half the team here. If it has Ice Beam, that's 5 of 6 Pokemon. Assuming you can get like Regice and Regirock chipped with spikes or something. Also, no spinner here versus 5 groundeds. Kind of crazy. Anyways, here's game 2. Appears to just be the same team on both sides. Did I click the wrong link? Okay, well, the match here is logged incorrectly, so I don't know. To be honest, I'm not going to go back and scan through the entire Discord log to try and find this one battle. Spoilers, JoJo won. I don't know if it was to game 3. It's not indicated as such, but yeah. So unfortunately put on wrong, but doesn't really impact very much. We're just going to play Lori versus Ghastly Dwarf. Lori, Regirock lead. I really like Regirock as a lead because it can just take a lot of Pokemon out, except for Omastar particularly, but I assume that Lori has something in the back for Omastar. Venusaur does it because it can just come in Sleep Powder. Poliwrath going for sub but not belly drum. Sub punch, ice beam, Surf. Maybe. Possibly Hydro Pump. Venusaur just going to start taking damage here. Possible speed tie, but Venusaur acts first all the time in those 3 turns, so didn't get to see if it was one. But it's possible Glalie is running more bulk. I don't think that's typically normal because Glalie is one of the faster spikers. 80 base speed is just so packed in the tier that you kind of want to run max speed Glalie, especially because Glalie can take one of any hit. 80, 80, 80 is pretty decent defenses. I actually run like negative SpDef with 0 IVs on Glalie so that Raikou can do more damage to it with Thunderbolt, but and then like Earthquake, Salac Berry, Earthquake, or Explosion or something. But yeah, Glalie's pretty bulky already, so it's possible Venusaur just won 3 speed ties in a row. At this point, we're seeing Curse Registeel get set up with Earthquake. Lori's gonna have to really hope for that full para here to break through, because Venusaur can't sleep it or really hit it with anything. It's probably Earthquake, but at +1 it's not going to be that big of a deal. Registeel dodging all of the paralyses. Dragonite already revealed Flamethrower, so Registeel switches out there to Poliwrath. Lori actually stays in to Thunderbolt, probably just not expecting the bulk on Poliwrath, or assuming that Dragonite is no longer needed here. I'm not sure how much I agree with that, because Registeel is still healthy enough to take a Raikou Thunderbolt and then possibly KO back with Earthquake, on top of Donphan being there. Venusaur might, I was going to say might Leech Seed, but with Synthesis Sludge Bomb you kind of need Earthquake, and then it wouldn't be Sleep Powder, so pretty standard Venusaur just lets Registeel set up, or I guess substandard Venusaur. Not substandard. Not standard. Does Registeel have Sleep Talk or Hidden Power? Hidden Power, okay. Venusaur just kind of fishing for a crit, waiting to get KO'd so that Dragonite can come in for one more Flamethrower, but it's going to be too little too late because Registeel is probably max def for Raikou situations. If I had to guess, Dwarf might be winning this unless Venusaur gets really lucky with that sleep, but it didn't. Dragonite, Registeel might want to rest here just in case of the burn. Nope. Oh, it's Zangoose. Interesting. I don't think Registeel KOs. It doesn't. Zangoose gets a Salac Berry, and that might be over for, yeah, with especially with the crit. I didn't expect Hidden Power Ground. I would first guess it would be Brick Break, but I guess Hidden Power Ground also hits Raikou at full, so no reason not to. Especially at +1. Well, for thinking of Donphan, but you can't mid-ground normal with Registeel on the field. Lori actually has Thunderwave Raikou, which is interesting because he shared the sentiment that UUBL is kind of just paraspam, but has a special Dragonite. Last move, I don't know what it is, might be Surf, might be Heal Bell, probably Heal Bell, and then Raikou Thunderwave. I assume Regirock is also Thunderwave. Zangoose, not typically very good. As you saw, it just KO'd one Pokemon and then left. Granted, it was a really crucial Pokemon, but the only person I've been able to see make Zangoose work is Chad Plank, and like he has a really good Zangoose team. But we'll look at Game 2 versus Dwarf versus Lori. Vaporeon lead. Kind of risky into Raikou, which is a pretty standard lead. Lori at this point hasn't played a whole lot of with Raikou, and we haven't seen a lot of Raikou lead this tour, so it would be pretty new to him, I guess, if somebody did lead Raikou, but I mean, I assume Lori did research, or just assumes that lead Raikou would be pretty good and has something in the back. A very bulky team with Vaporeon, Miltank, Regirock. Dwarf has sort of the counter picks with Lantern and Solrock. Solrock trying to target Dragonite, Lantern trying to target Raikou. and maintain with those two as few move slot restriction or Pokemon slot restrictions as possible. Like Lantern is about as good of a Raikou check as Chansey is some of the time. So we'll have to see what's in the back. Maybe it's like a really fast choice band Pokemon like Tauros or Crobat. Although Dwarf does have 2 levitators, so a third flying type might not be the thing, on top of Crobat just being Crobat. Lori going for Paris Spam here again. Rock Slide, Paraflinch. I think, I was going to say Lantern could just live in Earthquake and Double Surf, but got paralyzed, so we'll see what Dwarf has for Registeel. Houndoom could be good, but it's always risky to bring Houndoom in on Registeel because Houndoom really has to like land Overheat or something and risks taking Earthquake, especially coming in from Lantern. But Lori brings more stall-oriented teams. Well, not stall-oriented, but defensively oriented teams. So I guess Seismic Toss would be a fair shout. Also, Vaporeon just being there is why Dwarf crunched first turn, because Houndoom really struggles into Vaporeon, and Vaporeon being at full health is definitely not what Dwarf's team wants to see right now. And then sets up Sub-Whack, so it's Paraspam into Sub-Whack, and then last game was Paraspam into Zangoose. I would be interested in seeing a game where Lori runs into, like, let's say Hitmonlee. Because, like, even just looking at this team, Hitmonlee goes kind of nuts into it. I hadn't even mentioned Pinsir. Pinsir, I don't think I've ever seen in UUBL before. Hypercutter is not particularly useful, even though the tier has a lot of Intimidate users like Tauros or Arcanine. Hitmontop. So yeah, Dwarf does have the fast choice band user in Tauros. Or, no, it's not choice band, it's, what's the berry? Lychee? But Tauros just at this point does not have the ability to get through a Regirock. Well, I guess it could crit. I think it needs to sub now, activate Lychee, and then just hope that Lori doesn't have Raikou in the back, or I don't know, like Quick Attack Scizor or something. Vaporeon might be able to lift this hit. I mean, it definitely does, actually. Well, I suppose regular Vaporeons do. Lori might have been running a bit of a different stat spread on the lead, but doesn't matter too much. Dragonite, DD, Dwarf lead, Dragonite lack. Oh, because it's choice band. The Dragon Dance there, extremely free because Lantern is paralyzed. Dragonite. So, like, if Dragonite KO'd it with itself with Double Edge, then Lantern just can't pick up the battle against any of these guys. Win for Lori, win for Paraspam. I'm sure people are celebrating in the streets on that one. But Lori's a good player. Just versus Paraspam, I mean, who cheers for Paraspam? Tauros versus Hariyama. Hariyama is a really good lead from Alder. Oh, this is Wenderz versus Alder, by the way. Wenderz, like I said before, probably best UUBL player there ever will be. It's very rare that someone takes a set from Wenderz. Alder, very experienced, probably like the second longest playing player for UUBL. Zach PZ might have played as much as these guys have, but Zach hasn't played UUBL in a while, so I would definitely say, in terms of experience, it's Wenderz and then Alder. So we'll see how they want to play into each other. Alder has a pretty bulky squad, like a solid core here. We'll have to see what... I mean, any of these Pokemon could really function as a breaker, but it kind of really wants like a choice band user, unless that's Dragonite. But I don't know if we saw enough from Dragonite to be able to make that judgment. But Wenderz has Solrock, so if Dragonite is the breaker, then it's kind of already over for Alder, because Machamp just is so strong, and then there's, I mean, hasn't revealed much of a switch in for Slowbro, but versus Tauros and Lantern. Oh, actually gets Machamp exploded on, so this battle is looking like Alder's game, especially with Tauros being weakened, or Slowbro being weakened by that explosion. Marowak, okay. So yeah, Alder did have a secondary breaker, but Solrock coming in is, especially Reflect Solrock. I think Reflect Solrock is possibly its best set, in my opinion. I really like that it preserves Solrock a bit longer, and then because your defensive piece on the team versus Dragonite is only like 70-70 or like 70-80 defenses, it really helps out the rest of the team hold up against Dragonite and the likes of it. So Wenderz wins this one. A lot of explosions on both sides, kind of dropping down the Pokemon, but that Solrock just kind of blocked off a lot of the path once Regice exploded, so not a lot of Alder could have done there, especially because, like I said, Slowbro is like the big piece, but it just accepted the explosion from Quillfish. I don't know what Wenderz had in the back that could have handled Slowbro. Might have been, let's see here, he's got 2 waters, he's got 2 breakers, he's got a defensive piece. It might have been another special defensive piece or a special attacker. Lantern does kind of function as a special attacker though, so I don't know. I probably have this team saved somewhere, so I could look it up, but not gonna. This tournament has a lot of games to get through, so these videos are going to be pretty long. On to game 2, here's the Raikou lead. I think there might have been one in the game before, like in one of the games before in this tournament, but it is really weird that we haven't seen more Raikou lead. Wenderz bringing again another pretty defensive team with Lunatone instead of Solrock. Lunatone obviously going to Calm Mind Pass to Raikou or Regice, just get them jump started. Alder says the matchup on this is not looking good, especially versus Kingdra. Is this Choice Band or Lumberry Kingdra? Okay, it's definitely Lumberry. That statement might sound crazy, but I mean, Kingdra... Well, yeah, that is crazy, looking at the team. Counter Registeel. This Dodrio is just has such terrible footing here. That's one of the things about Dodrio. I love Dodrio, but there's just certain Pokemon that like are trying to check something else, like Solrock and Lunatone trying to check Dragonite, and Steelix trying to check Raikou. Like, if it was just Registeel standing in Dodrio's way, I think it would be fine. Like, we would see Dodrio a lot, but because there's so many Pokemon that Dodrio hates to see, trying to check other things. Dodrio just isn't that good of a Pokemon in Raikou format. Miraculous, it ended up being pretty good, but Alder's using one of Archie's teams, by the way. You can tell by the nicknames. Or no, just using Regice. Might have been like a restructure from one of Archie's teams as a base. But yeah, passing Calm Mind to any of these Pokemon just kind of folds a lot of the team, because Registeel is not the Curse variant, got paralyzed, as Steelix to switch in on Registeel. Registeel actually looked like it could have been doing pretty good there had it not gotten KO'd. Now we've got Gojira versus Bydy. We'll see. Bydy brings Jimmy the Camel with Jimmy the Card in the chat. We'll see if Bydy brings his Steelix. Place your bets now. It's almost a 100% guarantee, so you will not get paid very much back on it. Especially with, well, maybe, because he has a ground type and a normal resist. He might not have Steelix. Kind of needs a fast Pokemon, especially if one of these is Steelix. So maybe you will get paid out pretty well if you bet it against Steelix. Gojira has a Steelix. Regirock is kind of putting in some work here. We'll see what Gojira has for Regirock. I mean, just Earthquaking with Steelix is pretty fine, but I mean, Regirock has Earthquake, so it will only be fine for a certain amount of time. Oh, Regice doing a lot of damage with Ice Beam there. I don't know if that's just the calcs or if Bydy's Regirock was a little bit less bulky than normal. You know, maybe it's like Speed Choice Band because it only revealed one move. Jimmy the Card says Camel is looking deadly, but I kind of disagree here. Raikou needs to be paralyzed. I mean, Quick Claw is banned, its leftovers Camerupt. Explosion Steelix. One of the rare instances where Quillfish could have run a water move. Probably tried to, maybe it had it, trying to explode on incoming Vaporeon. Bydy stays in with Camerupt versus Quillfish. Kind of reasonable because you can just click Earthquake. We'll see what Bydy has for Raikou in the back. Raikou looks pretty deadly into this team in general. I mean, like, yeah, has a ground type, has Regice, okay, never mind. Opposing Raikou is just as much of a... There's like 3 anti-Raikou pieces on Bydy's team, so that's good enough. But yeah, again, it's just another explosion set on both sides. Kind of just forces you to trade pieces down, and Gojira just had better matchups with what was left. Game 2, switching sides, speeding it up. Omastar, Quillfish, both are just gonna probably set spikes up all the way. Nope, goes into Raikou. Raikou, there's Bydy Steelix. Bydy, big Steelix believer. Didn't click Roar there. Interesting. Dragonite, I was gonna say looks like could be Choice Band, but Ice Beam just invalidates whatever Dragonite was. Dragonite trying to stay in on Omastar was a little bit of an over-prediction, I guess. I don't know where... Maybe Gojira expected Bydy to go to Steelix, but I don't know. Omastar doesn't really get forced out by much, and that chip on that, like 50% on Omastar just gets healed back so easy versus a lot of Pokemon. Of course, you could have gone Raikou to threaten it out, but Quillfish self-destructing. Again, might have been another overreach, just sending Quillfish in on Omastar. Regice explodes on Tentacruel. Bydy saves the Dusclops versus 2 explosion users. We'll see what Dusclops wants to do here. It only has Seismic Toss, not Focus Punch or Earthquake, so versus Houndoom, it still managed to win anyways. Did Houndoom just not... mine just had Pursuit and no Crunch. Last move being something hit Vaporeon, maybe stronger than... Well, it wouldn't be much stronger than Crunch. maybe substitute there. Not sure. Raikou can Calm Mind here. Get 40 on Steelix. Nope. Not gonna be enough. Again, another explosion heavy game. Not like terribly so, but it was weird that Dusclops stayed out. Dusclops also pretty rarely seen in this tournament, even though it's one of the better ghost types to bring. We haven't seen a lot of ghosts, even though we've seen a decent amount of spike usage. Raikou versus Omastar. Okay, this is more of a standard game of what used to be. Nowadays, there's a lot more just kind of chaos running around. Weird leads like Vaporeon, Trick Alakazam. Steelix might go pretty hard here. Ooh, and Ursaring catches the burn from Dusclops. Dusclops is kind of another Wisp hit the Ursa. That's 1 in a million occurrence. True. I was gonna say Dusclops for this reason is kind of another liability Pokemon like Weezing, just because it's such an obvious Will-O-Wisp. I feel like Will-O-Wisp. I toyed around with the idea of Wispless Weezing just so that it doesn't get obliterated by Guts users, but every time I drop Will-O-Wisp, I feel like I need it. Dusclops can probably definitely drop it though. Dusclops has like a million options, but everybody just brings Will-O-Wisp, like Rest or Pain Split, Seismic Toss, and then random fourth move, Thief sometimes. Focus Punch maybe, but Dusclops can be run a lot of different ways, but a lot of the time it is Will-O-Wisp and just gets taking advantage of that, especially versus Houndoom. First turn, like, Gojira brought Houndoom last game, and so Wisp first turn with Dusclops is kind of a big gamble. Explosion drops Chansey, but Raikou's already gone, so might be too little too late. There's a Regice. Never mind. Just triple Ice Beam and you're good to go. I don't think Steelix can do anything without exploding, but it can't afford to. And probably doesn't have it. This team is pretty Bydy classic, I would say. 2 water types, a ghost, Chansey, Registeel. Or not Registeel, Steelix. Gojira's taking a bit of a more offensive team. Not quite as pressuring as Chungler brings, but still offensive. It's winning games. Now we are in the round 2 losers bracket. It is Jerry versus Dance of the Dead. We'll see how this goes. Jerry kind of came in for Reckless and then took a hiatus for a while. I don't know if it was from Pokemon as a whole or just UUBL, but it looks like Dance of the Dead brings Mono Normal again. Morning Sun Scizor is looking extremely deadly here. Because it can just Morning Sun here. Oh, or attack and KO the Smeargle. Focus Punch Dragonite, KOing the Slacking is fine. Dodrio clicking Frustration. I think that does like 80% to Dragonite, so Wigglytuff. That's unexpected. So Wigglytuff has like Wish Protect, that's about it. I've explored Wigglytuff a little bit, but like I was trying to think of anything to use outside of Wish Protect. Yep, it's playing out basically like that. It just doesn't have anything else. Like, you're locked into Seismic Toss, and then what last? Who knows? I'm sure it gets like screens or something. So I've just determined that Wigglytuff is not viable in anything higher than whatever tier it's in. It's got a lot of HP, but its defenses are like 40. It's also like 20 base speed, so not a lot it can do. Swellow as a switch into Vaporeon didn't make a ton of sense. Chansey not clicking a status move is interesting because Toxic or Thunder Wave would have been fine against Vaporeon, but Substitute Seismic Toss, maybe just anticipating being slower versus Substitute Vaporeon, doesn't want to risk the 101 subs. But that Vaporeon actually has very little health investment because Seismic Toss is doing 25 anyways. Which, I mean, Vaporeon's HP is so massive, it only needs like 40 points to get to 101. Oh, Swellow switching instead of Chansey versus Raikou. Dodrio could have seen a lot more use versus Dragonite and Regice. I mean, it like KOs both of them. I guess it just needs the turn against. What just happened there? What? Oh, counter. Counter Chansey is why I was clicking Seismic Toss versus Vaporeon all those times. But very, very interesting team. It would have probably worked otherwise. A lot of people don't expect counter on Chansey. Chansey has like a lot of different moves that it can run, but it's so often Aromatherapy or Wish, Seismic Toss, Soft-Boiled, and then Status that like you just don't expect it to come, even though you might know it. Again, I would probably have preserved Dodrio a bit longer and like try and work an angle where Chansey heals up and then you... Well, I guess Chansey wasn't in a position to take 2 Thunderbolts depending on... I don't know. I mean, Mono Normal is kind of a rough bring into UUBL. There's so many Steel types. Raikou just obliterates them because half of them are going to be weak to Electric. I'll see if he brings it again. No, it's the Umbreon Curse Pass team. So... Toxic Registeel. Registeel's a really good Toxic user, but the problem is Thunder Wave is just better usually. And so it's crazy that Swellow got Toxic by Registeel. A bit of a hard read, I guess you could say. Umbreon's probably going to take one turn to Moonlight and then Baton Pass this to Swellow. Because Swellow might be White Herb. I assume at least 2 Pokemon on here are White Herb. If Dance of the Dead goes Cradily again here, that might be a mistake. Jerry suggesting Alakazam does not have Encore. Yeah, I was gonna say Return, but it says in chat, Rip, I thought I had different moves. Swellow, what other moves could Swellow have? Because Swellow needs... It only has like 3 moves. It's got Return, Hidden Power Ground, Aerial Ace, and that's about it. You can run Quick Attack or Baton Pass, so dropping Hidden Power Ground makes you wonder what else is left. Maybe like Substitute, I don't know. Rain Dance Ludicolo might become a problem here. I was going to say you could go Cradily, deny like a Leech Seed, but Cradily just takes so much from neutral, Surf, Stab Surf in the rain. Goes for Ice Beam, even though Surf might have KO'd. Might be the roll, might not be, but Freeze, safe Ludicolo a turn there. I don't think Cradily was going to be able to do anything KO Ludicolo because Ludicolo is just so bulky. Miltank's going to be able to stall out the rain. Body Slam, maybe. Opts to Curse first. Surf did 46, so a crit into just an attack is enough. Miltank decides that it's just gonna paralyze anyways. Doesn't go for Milk Drink to try and stall out the rain. Take less from a potential Surf. Blaziken comes in. Not a very common Pokemon again, but looking pretty good into this team. Swallow also not showing flying move. Maybe it's like hidden power bug, who knows. Because any hidden power complementary coverage to normal would have hit Registeel. Raikou chooses to just combine on Weezing and explode. And Dodrio's going to be able to finish this game off here because Steelix doesn't have the sustain to take in power plus like Ice Punch. Yep. So that's that set. So that means Dance the Dead was knocked out there. Jerry stays in. Here we've got Water Without Any Eyes versus Bees. Water Without Any Eyes bringing Haunter. Haunter is a very specific anti-Chansey counter. Of course it does well into several other Pokemon, but I think its main target is Chansey. And so the fact that Water Without Any Eyes is spending Haunter so aggressively on Glalie kind of suggests that might have another Chansey answer in the back. With two special offensive Pokemon, it might be... I mean, I don't want to say Diglett. We've got Lunatone, Calm Mind Pass to... Maybe it's a Vaporeon. Kingdra. So, I mean, Glalie could be on the Chansey team, could not be. Entei is a good Chansey counter as well, but just because it has the 101 subs, and so Chansey has to spend 4 seismic tosses to take out 1 sub because of pressure. So Entei can stay in a bit against Chansey, and also functioning as a secondary Raikou answer on this team. Well, I guess tertiary because also Raikou, but Thunderwave Regice, Entei with a sub up. Doesn't clown on Raikou because Raikou outpaces Entei pretty fast, but I mean, with a sub and a Calm Mind, Raikou is just kind of hopeless. Entei could start substituting here and setting up more Calm Mind because Miltank would have to Milk Drink and Heal Bell, and it actually has double edge. Risks taking the turn, anticipating Toxic on it. Miltank's only ability is Thick Fat, but it's still taking 50% from these flamethrowers. That's a max modest Entei, or a fairly weak Miltank. Haunter coming in to beat Dragonite, HP Ice, crit. Wouldn't have KO'd without the crit, but I don't think it mattered. Water Without Any Eyes still has 6 Pokemon, so... Haunter got phenomenal value that game with just Bolt Beam with Will-O-Wisp and Taunt. Being able to take out Glalie on a crit, takes out Dragonite on a crit. Miltank wouldn't have been able to touch it. Actually, that might have been a pretty good call. Or, not a good call, but this is just a really fortunate matchup for Haunter. Especially if, Haunter Entei just kind of tears this team apart. Raikou is kind of the only thing that challenges that duo. We'll see what the matchup looks like in game 2. Smeargle versus Raikou. Raikou probably could have just... Well, it probably doesn't have a substitute in this case if it's switching out versus Smeargle. Because if Smeargle's Spore, Belly Drum, whatever, spikes, Raikou gets a lot more ground off of a substitute than Smeargle does off of one spike. And so switching out there indicates that it's possibly Roar Raikou or the Forbidden Crunch Raikou. This time Beezant brings Haunter. It's not looking like a good matchup for Haunter. And so this is the other like risk you take with Haunter is like it's really good into some specific Pokemon, but if they don't have that Pokemon, then Haunter like would have been better as any of the other ghosts, like Sableye and Banette included. Its only saving grace really is being faster than Dragonite, which is looking like what's in John Arbuckle's cart last slot. At least I'd be surprised if it's not a Dragonite. It could be another special wall because you only have two sort of half answers. Well, yeah, I guess you have enough answers to Raikou here, but Scizor, Vaporeon, Quillfish is just so weak into opposing Raikou. B's also bringing Blaziken, another fairly bad matchup for Blaziken, especially because Quillfish just hard walls it. But anyways, where are we at here? Vaporeon got put to sleep. Haunter's been doing Haunter things. Registeel comes in as the Raikou answer. Raikou's going to be able to take one Pokemon, possibly two. Opposing Raikou, we'll see if this is maybe Thunder Wave instead of Roar. Opposing Raikou is Roar. This Raikou comes in, takes the Thunderbolt, which means that, yeah, in the back is very possibly Dragonite. Although Dragonite might have wanted to come in on Blaziken. That Blaze boosted Fire Blast, finishing off Raikou, and yep, in the back is Dragonite, but Haunter just KOs. Really, Haunter Hidden Power KO Dragonite without a crit, that's... Let me look up the calc on that. Yeah, Hidden Power Ice... Oh, it's... Hidden Power Ice versus totally uninvested Dragonite is an 81% chance to KO, but that would mean that Haunter would not outspeed Dragonite because Haunter would have to be modest, and a lot of Dragonites want to be timid. Unless it was like the 240 Dragonite. Like really, I did not expect Haunter to be able to OHKO Dragonite with HP Ice because, I mean, even Raikou barely manages to do that. Oh, Haunter has the same special attack as Raikou. That's crazy, I didn't know that about Haunter. I assumed that Raikou would be stronger. So never mind everything I said about Haunter. Go Haunter. It won both games there. I'd like to see how it ends up tournament-wide if anyone else brings it, and like what Haunter's win rate is going to look like after those two games. Hariyama lead. Very good lead. Not a lot wants to stay in on Hariyama, like no matter what it is. Slowbro comes in on Poliwrath. That's definitely not what Poliwrath wants to see either. Umbreon going to synchronize Thunder Wave. Pursuit at double damage only does 40%. So Slowbro can just like Calm Mind Loop Umbreon if it wants to later. Especially because what we've seen so far is Poliwrath and Dragonite. Dragonite's really low now. Slowbro might be kind of a problem for bees here. Surfs into Poliwrath. I guess expecting Umbreon to come back in. But like I said, Slowbro can just Calm Mind Loop this. Rest. Yep. Umbreon Pursuits. Is it fully Paras? It is. Umbreon still has to connect like 3 more Pursuits though. That's the problem with Umbreon, is it's so passive that it just doesn't work as anything other than a wall. Could Pursuit Trap. Haunter could Pursuit Trap. No, that's about it. Alakazam, maybe. Because Alakazam doesn't want to stay in against Umbreon either, but with Registeel, I guess the team is kind of weakened to Alakazam, depending on coverage, because it Psychic KOs everything other than Registeel, but at that point, why not just use Houndoom? And then you have Water Absorb Poliwrath for Hidden Power Water Alakazam. Regirock going to explode because Slowbro is taken out based on getting paralyzed versus Umbreon. Dragonite has a lot of answers here. Like John Arboko card's Dragonite gets answered a lot by Bees' team, but has Miltank, the secret weapon. The Pokemon that can win any game. It's like, Miltank is like a UUBL Aerodactyl almost, where it's like, well, it doesn't really matter what its matchup is because it can just get lucky. Registeel is Paraflinch. Probably could have gone there because doubtful that Miltank has Earthquake. Gets the paralysis on Dragonite. Switches out into Hariyama. Yeah, so like you could have went Registeel into Miltank first and then rotated Dragonite in on Hariyama to get a big hit off with Dragonite because Regirock was down. Poliwrath being brought several times is definitely new. We don't see a lot of Poliwrath historically, but in this tournament we're seeing a decent amount of it. It could be a good Pokemon, but just because it needs... Like, the idea of Poliwrath is Sub Punch, but it needs Ice Beam for Dragonite. And so you're kind of locked into one other move, which is either going to be Surf, Psychic, or maybe like Protect or something. Thief, maybe, if it gets it. John Arboko Kart says Leshmon is Marowak, so another Paraspam team with Marowak in the back, but didn't even get that far. Interestingly, Water Without Any Ice's team is the one that got paralyzed more, but I mean Miltank is just Miltank. What happened to Machamp? Machamp getting cycled in on Hariyama was probably what sank the team. The Wish Suspension was what Bees was going for there. But Machamp would have done fairly well, especially because it had already taken out the Slowbro. I mean, Dragonite has answers on this team. Machamp would have been great into Marowak, great into Miltank, but unfortunately Machamp just went down before it could see how valuable it was. But anyways, that's round 2. I'm very late to uploading this video, and so I'm gonna try and wrap it up here and then move on to round 3 commentary. That one might also take another 2 weeks, I don't know. Well, yeah, that's it. See ya for